Subscribe to his YouTube channel and press the bell icon so that you never miss any update.
So hello everyone, welcome to the 12th session of Ask Me Anything on Facebook Live hosted by Inc42. This is Pallab from Inc42 team. And today we are live with a tenacious entrepreneur who has built his company from the ground up in the last decade and made it one of the leading online travel search and planning app in India. Delighted to welcome Aloke Bajpai, CEO of Ixigo.com. Welcome to the show, Aloke.
Thank you, Pallab.
Many of you might not know, but Ixigo has had a very fascinating journey in the last 10 years since its inception in 2006. And it is among the handful of innovative companies which are using futuristic technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning to improve their products and the user experience. Under the leadership of Aloke, Ixigo has raised $25 million in funding and has now grown to more than 12 million monthly active users and more than 300,000 monthly transactions. In fact, in last 6 months alone, Ixigo has doubled the number of transactions happening on its platform, which is amazing. So today we'll be talking to Alok about his journey of Ixigo and how Ixigo is growth hacking its way to a 50 crore revenue by the end of this year. And everyone who is tuned in right now, please start posting your questions for Alok in the comments section and he'll get to them shortly. So Alok, it has been more than a decade-long journey for Ixigo and quite an interesting one on top of that. If you have to reflect back on this journey, what would probably be the major highlights that has deeply impacted your personal or professional life?
Sure. So it's actually going to be almost 11 years in a few months, since when we started working on the idea of Ixigo. And when I look back, there were three key events that really shaped where we are today. The first was the fact that we were a company that started purely because the founders believed in a particular vision and wanted to get a product for the Indian travelers that can help them, search and compare all the travel information at one place. And it was purely that passion that actually got us started. When we look back, in those days, we were not even, I don't think funding was a word we even thought of or even talked about when we actually said, let's go and build something. Because we said, look, it's a product that the world, actually needs. There are a couple of companies out there who have built something on this model. And even though it's an unproven model, and it was a very unproven model back in the days, we said, it is a more consumer-friendly way of searching for travel information. So let's bet the next few years of our life in building this. Right. And looking back, it was a bit naive because we didn't do any math on how much money this would need, where would the funding come from, and we just said, let's start building the product. But I think that's how most startups actually start. Because,
passion, right?
You're engineers and you want to build something, right. You just get in and start coding. Right. So my co-founders and I, just got in and started building the product, and I started going and meeting some of the potential, clients or airlines. And we heard no a lot. Most of the time people didn't get what we were doing. Right. I remember in the first airline meeting I went, the guy actually said, why are you making your life so complicated? Why don't you become another OTA, just like Make My Trip? And right. I was like, look, I'm here to explain a different model to you, and you're talking about, changing my entire business. And I think that's the first lesson we learned, that, you will, as an entrepreneur, the default you will hear when you go meet people, either to talk to customers or to talk to investors, you will hear a no, right? And that should not mean that you're on the wrong path. That will mean that you're on a difficult path, and actually if you're able to build that path for yourself, you've actually also built a huge barrier to entry because you've created a new market. And when we look back, I think one thing we did very successfully was that we've created a blue ocean in this whole red ocean of travel, where everyone wanted to be an OTA. There were 4 well-funded OTAs, and we were actually the 5th company looking at the market, and anyone would have said, there's no point in doing anything. Right. And we said, we can create a new market here. We can actually create a new niche here. Right. So I think it's important to believe in your vision, and it's important that you don't get dissuaded by no's and you keep on going. The second was, in terms of fundraising, our experience was very, very difficult because, there were very few funds in India. Most of them were not very product tech focused. They would just fund copycat models from the West, and because no meta search in the West had till then proven that they can build a large business, that happened many years later, but till then no one had. So it was a very tough sell to investors, and we ended up raising money outside India. We had to go to Singapore to raise our seed round, I think the learning there was that, look, you have to learn to survive without money, right? And we did that for several years, So we actually raised a Series A round more than 4.5 years after starting the company, right? So 4.5 years of literally bootstrapping seed investment. And the third thing was that one thing we learned is that you don't need a lot of marketing dollars actually to build a product or tech company. People believe that you can't build a large enough business in India without actually spending hundreds of millions of dollars on marketing, especially if you're building a B2C brand. But here we are, we have 12 million monthly active users. I think in the cumulative decade, we have not spent more than $4 or $5 million on marketing, and I think that's because we've consistently just focused on product user experience, making sure that we deliver what we promise every single day, and that has to be the DNA for any solid product business. So I think just the fact that you persevere and that funding is a result and not a cause for success, and most of the time product and tech is literally what everything boils down to. Even if you spend on marketing, if you have a better product, it's more efficient. These three were the big learnings over the last 10 years.
So, and then in the early days, there was an incident where your Series A funding offer was withdrawn by a company that you were in talks with.
Sure.
And that was a setback for the company, right? But your team came together and your employees took a 50% cut in their pay for the next 9 months, and you did not even draw any salary at that time, right? That shows a lot of commitment from your team. And I think every startup would want to have a dream team like that. But the question is, how do you sort of breed a culture like this in the company, and how did you do it for Ixigo?
So actually, it was, I'll tell you that whole story, basically what happened is that we were days away from actually signing the long docs with a particular venture capitalist, and probably a couple of weeks away from money in the bank. And obviously the whole world was collapsing. Lehman Brothers was, the whole story, right? The financial crisis had started to unfold. And the moment we realized it was not happening, I think the big mistake a lot of founders make is not being transparent with their team, right? And not sharing everything that's going on, thinking that this is more strategic, it's not something, the junior most guy in the team needs to be aware of. But we said, look, if we are actually in deep shit, let's tell everybody that we are, right? So we actually did a small huddle. We were 25 people, right? We called everyone in a room and we said, this is what we're going through. We are not going to get any more money, and we have only money for the next 2 or 3 months to survive, right? So now we got to figure out some way of surviving beyond that. And there was this junior engineer, we had hired, who stood up and said, look, we can all work without salary, maybe till the time the company gets back on track. And I said, it's just not going to happen, because, you will run out of gas. You have to pay your rent, you have to survive as well, right? You have to put food on the table. So we worked out something together in that room, which was beautiful, saying that here is how together as a team we can make this company survive for 1 year. And in 1 year, if we grow our revenue by this much, then we are in a self-sustaining mode, right? And I think just going back to that, the DNA that we've built over time is literally about transparency. I think anybody who's worked at Ixigo can tell you that, we do share both bad news and good news, as soon as we can. And we also take counsel of our employees. At times when we face a difficult situation, sometimes, the best ideas can come from somebody who never expected them to contribute. And I think that's something over time we've learned, that, you got to stay humble. Even if you're the founder, even if you're the CEO, you've got to stay humble and be equally transparent to everybody. Because in hard times, these people will support you. And in good times, you got to reward them, right? So we actually gave all these people ESOPs. A lot of these people have actually made some money over the years in our funding rounds. And we want to make sure that everybody actually has some kind of skin in the game in the company, right?
So you're aiming to close this year with a 50 crore revenue, which is almost going to be double of what you made last year. So first, like I have two questions. First, are you on track to hit this goal? And secondly, what marketing activities would you say are the biggest contributor to achieve this goal in Ixigo?
So I think we'll not just hit this goal, we'll definitely exceed it. And I can go on record and say that we are going to do more than that. And thanks to all our users for all the love, because we've seen some really crazy growth on both MAUs and transactions in the last 6 months. Like you said, we've doubled our transactions. We've also almost doubled our MAUs. So if we continue down that path, we are definitely going to breach our targets that we've set for ourselves. And marketing activities. Look, we've, like I told you, we've been a little bit conservative in terms of our thinking on marketing. Unlike most of the travel companies out there who are loud on TV and spending a lot on Bollywood celebrities, we've chosen to go down the route of content marketing. We rely a lot on organic videos on Facebook.
Right.
We spend a lot of time thinking about SEO, about ASO, about how do we rank well organically.
Right.
And we also have a lot of focus on saying how can we build partnerships where we can distribute more effectively. We did one with Micromax. We've done one with Tabzo. We've done several partnerships with third parties who have helped us actually be out there. In a more cost-efficient manner to acquire these customers. So I think we'll continue investing a lot on that. Perhaps next year we will up our spends even more, given that we will have more money to spend. But I don't think you will see us going bonkers like some of the other guys out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how much, if you have to tell us the split of how much, among your marketing budget, how much is spent on the organic versus how much is spent on the paid?
So what I can tell you is that paid marketing contributes less than 25% of our user base, right? All paid marketing activities put together, is not more than that. In some cases, even less than 20%. So 75% of our users actually come for free. I mean, pure organic or referral, word of mouth, direct.
Right.
And we like it that way, and we want to keep it that way even as we scale, right? So if we spend more on marketing, it's only to maintain that mix.
Okay. So in March this year, Ixigo raised $15 million in Series B round of funding. How are you planning to use this money in the growth of the company in the next, let's say, 2 years or 5 years?
So, we think of it like this is just fuel to get to your destination, right? So funding, does not really change anything in terms of our end goal or what we want to be. And I think our vision is very clear that we want to give people a more personalized, travel, search and planning and booking experience, right? So if you think of our entire journey, we started as a meta search engine where we aggregated a lot of data, and then once we had all this data, we said, how can we make it more intelligent? So we added one layer of intelligence in the form of, whether it is PNR prediction on our train app or whether it is fare prediction in our flight app, saying that can we use this data to start making meaningful predictions, meaningful personalization. And then the next level is saying that, look, can we make it so intelligent that it already knows what you want, right? I know that it sounds, like rocket science, but it's something that, once you know enough about the person, you have enough history of their searches, and you know how fares are trending or how seat availabilities are trending, you can start doing some very interesting things. Like I can tell you that, fares to Australia might be the lowest right now that we've ever seen in the last 1 year. And if you don't book within the next 1 week, you're likely to see them increase by, about 2,000 rupees. So in case you were actually searching for Australian destinations a few months back, I will send you a push notification that will tell you exactly that, because that's what you want to hear, right? So our intent now is to make the whole experience more and more personalized, and to become, that personal travel assistant that sits on everybody's phones and solves for their, flight, train, hotel, bus, cab related information and planning needs, and allows them to book wherever they want.
Right. So as you mentioned, you're doing it in Three phases. So you're using artificial intelligence and other technologies in various features, for example, to improve the search experience, as you said. Then also there are other features like, fare prediction engine, like you said. What are some of the other use cases, if you have to tell us, in the Ixigo where you're using these technologies?
Sure. So we are using them behind the scenes for a lot of things, like how we rank our hotels. We constantly working on improving hotel ranking and hotel curation based on data science, right? Because based on your past searches, your past click-throughs, or your past bookings, and then people like you. So if we know that it's a similar profile of user sitting in Bangalore who actually behaves a lot like you, and these are the kind of hotels he actually chose, I can actually offer you a much more personalized, curated list of hotels that will save a lot of time, because you will not have to go through 500 results, but just see 10 or 20 which you're likely to. So if I say, find me a kid-friendly 5-star beach-facing resort in Goa, right? It automatically narrows down a choice to maybe about 100. But then out of those 100, there are probably 10 or 15 which I know that Pallav would probably like these, right? And if I had to suggest it to somebody else, those 10 might be different, right? So we are applying data science to narrow down results and personalize them. We are also thinking of how do we actually use voice, right? So one of the areas where we have spent a lot of time in the last 6 months is saying, how do we actually think of a voice-based experience end-to-end for flight searching, planning, booking, maybe even web check-in, maybe even automatic alerts which come to you over voice. So travel agents in the old days would call you up, right? Or you would call them, and you would have a personalized one-on-one chat. Why can't you do that with a bot, right? And I know that chatbots failed because nobody likes to type a lot, right? I mean, it's cumbersome. You'd rather just tap. Right. But voice is so natural, and we've started using Siris and Alexas and all that. So I think the next level is that all apps will need a voice-based interface, and we want to be the leaders in travel for that.
Perfect. Another technology that is coming up right now is blockchain. So how do you find?
You almost said Bitcoin.
Yeah. Right. So what is the potential of blockchain in the travel industry? How do you see it?
I think it's beautiful. So blockchain could potentially provide that there are these large GDSs which process travel transactions, right? So all the airlines work with them, and then all the travel agents use the data of them, and they act as these reservoirs. They're like the banks of the travel industry, right? They act as the reservoirs of all the data that flows. And I think at some time in the future, one can foresee a system where that layer of trust or guarantee or just peer-to-peer discovery can be done over some kind of architecture that is more blockchain-led, right? I'm not sure what the immediate implications are, but I'm sure that some kind of blockchain-based exchange for travel information as well as booking can be created, whereby you would not need an intermediary that is so large, whether it's a GDS or an OTA.
Right. That's perfect. So last question, and then we will go to the audience's questions. So Make My Trip also has a little bit of stake in your company, right? Sure. And there was a recent merger of GoIbibo and Make My Trip. Anything similar can we expect from Ixigo? Any mergers on the horizon again?
So, Make My Trip has a small minority stake in our business, and they are a strategic investor, and I think from the standpoint of how we operate, we are operating as a totally independent business with an independent board, and our own direction and vision of where we want to take the company. So I don't, I can't comment on any speculation on what is likely to happen in the future. All I can say is that, at Ixigo, our vision for where we want to be in the travel industry is a lot broader. We think of ourselves as a more, consumer-centric play, whereby we want to be at the, at the start of the funnel, at the beginning of where people start thinking of travel and start thinking of planning their trip. That's where we want to start becoming more relevant. And I think OTAs typically want to be more closer to the transactional end of the funnel, and I think that's a big difference between where we are and where they are. And I think we'll see how it plays out. In globally, if you see, very large outcomes have been created in both the OTA space and the meta space, the marketplace space. And I think in India, it should play out similarly.
All right, so let's move on to the questions from the audience. And as you can see, we have quite a lot of questions coming in. So I will leave this to you, and you can pick any question that you like and go right ahead.
Awesome. So let's start with Ankul's question on what is very crucial while setting up the initial team. I think it's a great question, Ankul. Most of the time we have a temptation to just have friends as co-founders because we are very comfortable with them and we trust them. But I think one has to look at it a little more objectively and see if the co-founders have some complementarity in their skill set and attitude. And I think somewhere, in most successful startup teams, you will see that one founder is a lot more business savvy and maybe marketing savvy, and the other founder is more of a tech and product person, right? And I think if you're able to find a team that really complements each other and at the same time gets along, trusts each other, that's the perfect mix. Moving on to the next question. Can you please tell us one thing, if you knew earlier, it would have made it even much bigger than what it is today? I actually wrote a Medium post called 10 Things I Wish I Knew before I started. I think you can look that up and read them. It's not just one thing, but many things. And I think one mistake we all make is that, we think too small, and this is especially true for a market like India where we see a lot of problems in everything and we think that things are slow. So we always keep thinking very small. And I think you got to think big. Only when you think very big can you even have a mediocre, mid-level outcome. If you start thinking small, you're not likely to even build something small. Next question I see is, who according to you has played a bigger role? This is Aloke Kumar. Who according to you has played a bigger role in bringing consumers online travel search website, OTAs or IRCTC? I think I would give the credit to IRCTC. I still remember that I used to queue up, at railway stations as a kid in order to buy a train ticket, line up early in the morning. And IRCTC changed all that for us and made it really convenient. And I think they brought the large number of travelers online and started making them transact online. So all credit to them. They started it all. And the OTAs came and the metas came. What is your take on online travel aggregators vis-a-vis the hospitality companies like Oyo and Tribo? So Amit's question, I think, look, there is a space for both the models. An OTA is a much more broad horizontal model. Whereas if you look at Oyo and Tribo, these companies are very focused on hospitality as a sector, and within hospitality, like budget hotel aggregation, at least that's how they started. And I think that given that the market depth in India is so big and only 15-16% of hotel bookings happen online, right? So a large number of hotel room nights are still walk-ins and calls. There is a huge upside that can be built, on the hotel aggregation side. And at the same time, OTA market continues to grow in double-digit percentages year on year. So it's still an interesting space to be. Both have their own spaces. Okay, let's move to the next question. In India, hotels remains a largely unorganized space where digital penetration is poor. How is Ixigo coping with the challenges of the market? That's a good question, Meha. And I think at Ixigo, our strategy is that we try to grow with the market, because growing the market takes a lot more marketing dollars and effort. And I think we want to ride on other companies that are helping grow the market. But we want to grow with the market and grow maybe faster than the market. So our view is build a better hotel discovery product, build a product that helps you find better hotel prices that are out there, and we'll continue growing leaps and bounds there. So Mayank Singhal is asking about acquisitions and the fact that we've made a few acquisitions and how have these acquisitions helped bolster our presence. So Mayank, most of these acquisitions were actually ac hires where we wanted these individuals running these companies or the teams to actually come and work with us and help us build something bigger. And I think in a couple of cases they've worked out very well for us. These people are still here. They are owning and managing very important lines of businesses for us, and we are very hopeful about the outcomes of these companies that we've acquired. Okay, moving on. What was the best marketing strategy that worked for Ixigo? This is asked by Naushad Alam. Naushad, I'll give you two or three, and I don't know if they're still relevant. In the early days when we launched, we asked all our friends to change their Gtalk and Yahoo Messenger statuses to check out ixigos.com, the best travel search, right? So this is completely non-scalable, but it helped us get almost 10,000 users within the first 2 days of our launch because we asked all our friends to do it with their friends as well. Right, in today's world, you can still loan people's tweets, their Facebook status messages, their Insta messages. And I think you can, if you have any celebrities in your network or any even people with large fan following in your network, I think you should leverage them for growing, the word of mouth for your company. The second that has worked really is search engine optimization, which means ranking well on Google and spending a lot of time figuring out what kind of content does this search engine really like, and building more content of that nature. And the third is really mobile, right? So we've spent a lot of time, energy in being the best mobile user experience in travel over the last 4 years, and as a result of that, that focus on mobile as a platform, we've actually scaled to more than 40 million downloads over there. And I think had we not just shifted gears and focused on mobile, we would never have gotten there. Arpit Mundra is asking about office culture. How important is office culture? What kind of office culture we personally propagate? So I'll tell you a few things about the kind of things we believe in at Ixigo in our office culture. So we don't clock people's time. In fact, most people want to come in whenever they want and leave whenever they want, because we believe that people are most productive when they actually are happy about what they're working on, and that could happen in the morning, afternoon, evening. They might be most productive at a certain time of the day. They might be night owl and they might only start working at 9 p.m. Who knows? And we let them do that as long as they're able to meet their objectives or their personal goals on time. The other thing we do is a lot of freedom in terms of what they want to do. So if somebody comes and says, after a few months that I want to work on some other area within the company, we have actually encouraged that proactively. Many people have moved functions, they've moved departments, they've moved from tech to product, tech to growth, and vice versa. So I think we've seen those kind of movements. We encourage them. And last thing is that we actually want people to take more and more responsibility over time. One thing we learned is that if you hire good people, if you hire the best people, then you have to, let them run with their ideas and let them prove that they can do even something bigger with them, right? And in the past, many of these people have actually gone and built some of the most successful apps we have today. They were just built on the whims and fancy, saying, I think this is cool, shall we go and build it? And they went out and built it in a matter of a couple of weeks. And then, now those apps are really bringing in millions of users, right? So freedom is very important. Some people are asking very generic questions about how to raise funding, where to raise funding. I think, look, my answer to this is very standard. If you build something great, first of all, you will get customers or you will get users using it. Funding should be an outcome of that and not a starting point of thinking about your company. So just focus on building the best product. Focus on solving for a real problem that matters to a lot of people. And solving for a market size that is large enough. That is very important because most VCs want to look at a very large market. So as long as you're in a market that's attractive, building a product that's great and growing organic user basis, funding should be pretty easy. Shailendra is asking, is Ixigo investing in small scale startups? Look, like we said, we've done ag hires in the past, so we can definitely look at more ag hires in the future. If we like a team that's doing things that are relevant for us, we would definitely consider making offers to make them part of our team. And if there is a startup in travel that is in an area where we think we want to be, along with the right team and the right technology already in place, we'll definitely take a look at it. Darsh Bijur is asking, how did you first raise money? Actually, my first check into the company came from a close friend of mine. I mean, most of the time, the first check for most founders will come from friends, family, people who trust you with their money. And those people typically will not spend a lot of time looking at your business plan or your product. They will just give it to you on their face value, on your face value, that's what happened in our case. So Akash Mallu is asking about whether Ixigo is doing anything significant with bots, with AI and ML. So about a year back, we had launched Ixibaba. Actually, more than a year back, we launched a chatbot that actually works over textual queries and gives you answers related to travel searches. What we are working on now is more interesting. We're working on a voice-based travel assistant, and we are calling her Tara. We actually launched it at Focusrite in the US a couple of weeks back, and we won an award for it. But we're going to take that product live within the next few months, and that's very exciting because you can literally do all your travel planning and searching as well as booking on voice, and we can also do interesting things like automated web check-in, automated discovery of new destinations on voice. So that's cool. What tips do you have for building the right core team, from Amit? Um, Amit, the right core team, and I'm hoping you refer to people after the founders, right? The first few people that you hire. I think it's important for the product and tech centric companies to hire some very solid engineers to begin with, because they will become the backbone of your company, right? So it's important to get the right engineers in place, get people who can think more long term, but who can also be extremely fast in rapid iteration, who can work at breakneck speed to get things live. We were very lucky to have a couple of such engineers when we started, and also get somebody who has design sense. If somebody in your founding team does not have design sense, try to get somebody who's a designer, UX expert. If you're building a B2C startup, that's very important, because your user experience actually can be a big make or break for your company. So Kiva was asking, can this app run in offline mode? So in our train app, we actually have an offline mode, and we did that because a lot of our train users actually have very low bandwidth connections, or they don't want to use a lot of data. They're very sensitive to data usage. So yes, our train app does work in offline mode. Tarun Nazari was asking about, can Ixigo provide budget holiday options and tie up with few outstanding or popular travel companies? We do already provide a few holiday options on Ixigo, even though we do not have a full-fledged focus or section for holiday packages. But you will find some options, and you can book your flights and hotels together. You might have to book them separately, but you can build your own budget holiday there. I think the packages segment needs a lot more hand holding. You need to be a little more operational, have people who can answer queries, and for a meta search or a marketplace, that's more difficult. Tarun also asked an interesting question whether Ixigo can be integrated with a company's main T&E dashboard. Essentially, how can we play a bigger role inside corporate travel? I think it's a very interesting area for us. We've always thought about it, but never done much about it. There are still very interesting problems to solve on the consumer side before we think of what can we do for enterprise or corporate users. But we will get to that, hopefully, not too distant in the future. And we still think that the best way to solve enterprise problems also to think of the enterprise users like a consumer, and that's where people like us can actually innovate on the consumer experience side, and use the same travel desk that you have, but allow you to have a much nicer experience as an end user. But that's for some other day. Santosh has asked a very nice question, which is, have you killed any apps that you started? When do you decide whether to persist or pivot or quit for good? I think it's a very hard question. It's like uh, we have killed apps that we started. We actually have killed 3 apps in the last 3 years. We had an app which you could use for road trips. Even though it was a very nice app, we figured out that companies like Google Maps and a few other apps were solving those problems in bits and pieces, and we also figured out that we were spreading ourselves too thin over several ideas and apps. As a startup, the big mistake you can make is to pounce on every opportunity that comes along your way, and you got to focus at some point, right? And eventually, you will find your mojo in 1 or 2 areas at the max, and that's where you should put all your effort behind. So yes, we have done that. And how do you decide? I think it's very hard. You just have to look at the data, look at all the data that you're getting in terms of usage and growth, and B, just ask yourself what is it that you are excited about. Where does your gut feel or intuition say you're going to have the best outcome, and just focus on that particular app or area. We still have 2 apps, train and flights. We still have a lot of work managing, maintaining, and growing those 2 apps, but we think those 2 are very distinct markets. A lot of train users don't take flights, and they want certain value-added features that flight users don't care about, so we still maintain those 2. The rest we've actually killed or merged. Okay, Nikunj is asking about, building a unique experiential marketing platform. They tend to hold the platform responsible. Yeah, I think this is a very interesting problem, because marketplaces always face this, right? Because you take onus for what you're selling, and if something goes wrong, they'll hold the marketplace responsible. On Ixigo, we are very clear that we don't sell anything, and we show people where they're buying from. But people will still write to us when they face problems, and I don't think you can avoid it. You can't run away from it. And the only way to avoid backlash is to actually help those users in some way, smart way, to get their problem resolved with the marketplace participants, right? So I don't think there's any way you can hide or avoid, doing some level of customer service for those people as a marketplace. Purvish was asking about chicken and egg problem, and I'm assuming this relates to, again, marketplaces saying, on one side you need to get users, on the other side you need to get suppliers or sellers, and how do you manage that problem? Who do you go after first? And if you look at the history of most marketplaces, you have to literally growth hack one side before the other takes off, right? If you think of companies like Airbnb, they had to just ride on Craigslist in order to get more demand for their listings, right? And even mine listings of them. So I think somewhere you have to build one side faster, and supply is usually the one people think is faster and easier to build. And if you have enough supply, you will start getting some demand. This is what I've typically seen in most marketplaces. However, there could be areas where it's easier to tap into some kind of distribution or some kind of partnership through which you are able to get a lot more demand, and using that demand, bait supply into coming onto the platform. Right? There are a couple of examples globally that have done that as well, but you have to growth hack one side sooner or faster than the other. They never grow hand in hand, right? They start growing hand in hand after you reach a certain scale, but till then you got to growth hack one side. Pooja Sareen is asking, why so much focus on video marketing? What's the broader strategy Ixigo is following to make this work? Well, we believe that, if you look at social media consumption, the amount of time we are spending on video is going up over time, right? And if you look at your own consumption habits, online video is definitely taking up a lot more of your time, and also leading to a lot more engagement, shares, if I look at my feed typically on Facebook, I'm seeing a lot more videos, and I'm also seeing a lot more people sharing those videos. So if you are able to make some share-worthy content in a video format, the probability that you can reach millions of users in a short period of time is very high, right? And part of the reason is because platforms are actually pushing video content more aggressively than any other form of content. So today, if you're publishing video, if you're doing live video, for example, on Facebook, probability that you'll end up at the top of the feed is actually much higher. So we are just riding on this. This strategy is just out of what works, and I think over time this might become something else. Today it's video, tomorrow it might be VR or AR, who knows. Okay, Jaspreet is asking, do you build everything in-house from the starting days or outsource in the initial days? I think for most startups, you cannot make the mistake of outsourcing your core stuff, right? So if tech and product is really core, you just cannot outsource that, right? You have to do it in-house. In our case, I don't think we outsourced anything in the early days. We just did. Also because you can't afford, if you're a small team, you just can't afford to hire outside consultants. You have to literally build everything on your own. I think where you should take outside help is where you feel the core team does not have an area of expertise. So like I've given you examples of design and UX. If you feel you don't have somebody, please take outside help on that. Hopefully at some point design becomes very core, and then you don't literally have to live off outsourcing all the for the entire journey. But in the very early days, just take help on accounting. That's something easily outsourceable. Take help on all the other non-core stuff, but please not on your tech. Okay, one last question. Do you feel that there is a need for a network marketplace for the travel industry? Akash, that's exactly what we think we are out here to do. We're trying to create a marketplace where OTAs, suppliers across categories can actually be present, and as a consumer you can decide who you want to transact with and how you want to package various components of your trip. So we do feel that that's a need that many travelers feel, because you don't like going from one app to another and keep doing the same search over and over again, or from one website to another. If you could do all that at one marketplace, why not, right? So yes, that's the end of the Facebook Live. Thank you.
So with this, we come to the end of the 12th session of Ask Me Anything on Facebook Live. Lots of interesting questions from all of you guys. So thank you for joining us today and putting forward your questions. And thank you, Alok, for joining and presenting these insightful answers. Really, I like personally, even I have learned a couple of things today. So I'm very happy with this. So if you have more questions for Alok, you can tweet to him at @Aloke Bajpai, his full name. So his Twitter handle is @Aloke Bajpai. We have many more AMA sessions coming up, so stay tuned on our Facebook page, Inc42 Facebook page, and I'll see you soon.